Every good Bond needs a good villain. So our favourite villains. John, you're very good at doing an evil voice.
I found this very hard. That was terrible. That was more like Q, isn't it, than a Bond villain? Yeah,
God.
Do you know what? I've got an interesting three. I'm going to go for a number three, Alec Trevelyan, which was
Sean Bean.
Shaw
Yeah,
Bean
Goldeneye.
in Goldeneye. I just like. I mean, when I first saw it, the betrayal was really interesting. And a new thing, really, that Bond was a theme that's used again and again. It has been used in the more recent films, sort of a person in his life that betrayed him. And Sean Bean brings that kind of I don't know, style and sort of good looks to the film as well. That a lot of the other Bond villains are generally older, more portly, kind of sedentary gentlemen, aren't they? But he's kind of a dangerous villain. Number two, I really struggle, but I'm going to say probably Ernest Stavro Blofeld, because he's been such a veneer through the Bond franchise and played by various different actors masterfully, more recently as well. Was it Stephen Voltz, the most recent one?
Yes.
Christopher.
It's Christopher Voltz, that's it, Christopher Voltz. But also, when he was in as leader of Spectre in various roles. But my number one villain is Jaws. By far, my number one villain is Jaws. Because he's such an interesting character. He's not arch villain, I know, but his journey from villain to eventually sort of his redemption and friend of Bond, and saving his life, and him having his own little story with his girlfriend at the end with the pigtails. He's my favourite Bond villain. And always will be. And I'm kind of wondering it when we just do our discussion of future Bond films, if he might even have a comeback. I don't know. We'll see.
Alex.
You've picked a few of mine, actually.
Wow.
John, this is interesting. I totally agree. I was trying to explain to my daughter, because she doesn't know who Sean Bean is. And I just said, it's his job to come into a role and die. And die well, but die. She was like, yeah, okay, whatever. But there's no other way to describe it. And that image of him being dropped onto the radio telescope is just priceless. Okay, so I think I'm going to step it up slightly differently then. I'm going to talk about a couple that come to mind and make me laugh, and then I'm going to go for a really serious one. So one of them is Max Zorin, Christopher Walken from View to a Kill. Mainly just Christopher Walken being the villain is amazing. I don't really care if you buy it or not. It just doesn't matter. He's such a great actor, and to have him in the film was just that made that entire film.
Big close friend of Roger Moore as well, apparently. Like a lifelong friend of Roger Moore.
And a lot of villains, I don't know what it is, but a lot of villains like drop off from heights. Like there are a lot. I just saw like clips, and there are quite a few that are just like plunged to their death. So
I'm gonna go up in this hot air balloon that I hid up my ass. For 20 years, I hid this hot air balloon, this Zeppelin up my ass. Yes. And now, Roger Moore, before I kick you off the Golden Gate Bridge, I present this Zeppelin to you. Sorry.
Amazing impersonation of Christopher Walken there. Channeling his best
he was in
Pulp
the room.
Fiction.
Well, the thing is, when that happened, because my daughter was watching it, I said, it's all right. Christopher Walken can fly, so it's not a problem. Because obviously he can. Anyway. So, I think he needs a mention. The other one, I did have Blofeld on my list as well, so well spotted, John. I want to put a really serious one in, which is Rami Malek playing Lucifer Safin from No Time to Die. And I want to put him in because actually most of them go, oh yeah, I expect you to die, Bond. But it's just like, it doesn't seem to be malice, and like, you just don't buy it. And the thing for him is he concocts such a brutal method of getting his own back. And so that kind of puts chills down me. I was like, yeah, that's really effective.
Technically, Alex, he's the only Bond villain that's actually killed Bond. Spoiler.
True. Yeah.
Essentially, isn't he?
Very only successful villain.
Yeah.
Which is pretty bad rating for the villains. Come on, guys! It's like 24-1. I'm sure you could do better than that. There's one other that I want to put in for comical reasons, which is Gustav Graves, Toby Stevens playing in Die Another Day. And the only reason for him is completely implausible as a villain.
Yes.
I just didn't understand him at all. But it was just the fact that his entry was sort of skydiving over London and then going to Buckingham Palace in a suit. And at that point, I was just like, yeah, I'm in for this. I don't really care about it, but I'm in. Let's do it. And it was just very funny. So I loved that from him.
Can I do because I didn't mention any honourable mentions, but I think we haven't mentioned what. Sorry, Bobby, I can see you're rolling your eyeballs at me, listeners. But we haven't mentioned Rosa Klebb, one of the very few female
Great one.
villains with her spiky shoes, because again, the actress who played her, which I'm going to very, very quickly look up because I can't remember her name, she didn't live very long, did she, after the Bond film, if I remember rightly? We talked about her and when we did it. She was played by, here we go, I'm padding now, Lotte Lenya.
Ah, right.
And she was basically a high-ranking member of SMERSH at the time. Didn't do many films. And again, she's just really interesting and kind of. I'm not sure. I think she was. She batted the other side as well because she's in one of Fleming's novels. She was described as being sort of playing the other side. So I thought she was a really interesting character for that as well, because she's not going to be affected by Bond's, seductions. So yeah, let's give a little pour a beer out there, pour one out for Rosa Klebb in her spiky shoes. Bobby, what about you?
In the interest of time, I'm not going to give any honourable mentions. I'm just going to give you my top 3. So at number 3, Javier Bardem as Silver in Skyfall. Just one of the creepiest, best acted, delicious. I could watch his entry into the franchise, that scene, that long take, over and over and
in the
over
server room,
over again, and just never ever get bored. He just chews the screen off, and he's brilliant. I mean, never, I've got my biases obviously towards the Spanish side of my family, and we go to his sister's tapas bar in Madrid, blah blah blah. But he is just one of the most memorable for me as well. Number 2, from GoldenEye, Xenia on the top, played by Famke Janssen, because she's just fucking nuts. Like, she's absolutely unhinged.
Didn't she injure Brosnan doing that sex scene? I think we talked about that, didn't we?
I think she bruised his ribs,
or at least the
his
fight
ribs
in the prison cell or something.
Yeah. But she is absolutely freaking nuts. From the moment she first appears in the Ferrari on screen, you're thinking to yourself, I mean, she's beautiful, but you do not want to go down that road because she is freaking trouble. The way when she kills people, she gets off on it. I think it was written in that her character actually orgasms when she kills people.
Yeah.
Just absolutely freaking unhinged. And then number 1, it has to be Richard Keeler's Jaws. When I was very young, the stuff of my nightmares, but I just couldn't, I just had to keep watching Moonraker and The Spy Who Loved Me again and again and again, and it was for Jaws more than anything else. And I loved him. I really did. And I was really glad that he got his sort of happy ending in Moonraker as well. That was really sweet. But in The Spy Who Loved Me, he was... And I love the interplay between him and Roger Moore, especially on the cable car in Moonraker, when he smiles at Roger Moore, and the way that Roger Moore smiles back is sort of like a grimace.
But it's kind of two... There's two adversaries that kind of know each other by now, isn't it? By Moonraker, they know each other and they know their capabilities. Is he one of the only ongoing villains? I'm trying to think of any other ongoing villains played by the same actor in more than one film.
It feels like it is.
Mr. White's been in a couple of films, hasn't he?
Yeah, it was Mr. White and also Christoph Waltz obviously did Blofeld twice. But yeah,
I feel like he's the most memorable one.
Yeah. So there we go. There's our top villains. I will give a special mention, actually. I'll give a special mention. You have to mention Blofeld. My favourite Blofeld, who also for me was the creepiest, was Donald Pleasance. Donald Pleasance's Blofeld was just skin crawling, and he did such a great job as well, especially because he was sort of drafted in at the last minute to replace the other guy who looked a bit like Santa Claus.
And was that Anthony Perkins?
No.
Who was it?
The guy was we need to go back to previous Bondathon episodes for the facts on that.
Yeah.
Can't remember them. But yeah, Donald Pleasance's Blofeld was the best for me, in my personal opinion. Any keyboard warriors out there that are going to come and attack?